And remember that you have this powerful tool, which is debugging tool as well, that would help you to see how this code is being done. And I would really suggest that you understand every single thing in this project before you start your lab. If you understand this, you are okay with the lab, you are okay with the project, everything is okay. Therefore, please make sure that you make sure for these 2 weeks that we have conversation in case you have any problem. Now, let's get started talking about JDBC demo. I'm going to start from the data access layer. Data access layer, as you know, is the lowest layer in the packages. And we have 3 classes. The first one is the connection pool. Remember that the connection pool, the main idea is to create connections that being used again and again. We don't close and open because the close and open gonna cost us a lot. And the most important part of this course, we should discuss this like every single method here. We should discuss that in the theory lecture. However, remember that we need to use this initial context lookup function, and we're going to pass this string. Now, this string is not a random string. You can find this inside the configuration file. If you go to the context.xml, and here you will have the data that you need. For example, here I'm connecting to Notes database. Okay, and here I have the username and I have a password. And what we are doing here, we are just saying, okay, for the connection pool, get this database and create a connection pool for this database. Okay, and remember that this is going to be what we call that as a singleton pattern. That means we just create, if the first time that we have pool equal null for the first time, then yes, I create a connection pool. If not equal null, then I will return the same pool each time. Okay, we just have one pool, therefore this is a singleton pattern. Okay. Now, this is the first class that we have called connection pool, and we have database util. Very simple class. And by the way, these 2 classes are copy and paste. Like you don't need to write any of this in your project or on your lab. This is a utility that helps us just to make our code looks nicer. One called close prepared statement and one called close result set. Like for example, if you are using a prepared statement, you can use this to close the prepared statement. And if you are using a result set, then you can close the result set using this method. Okay. And now let's move to Node database. Node database. Now here we have 5 methods. Let me just collapse all of them to talk about each one of them. This is where I will talk with the database. Okay, here Java, or not I, let's say Java, will talk with the database here. This is the point where Java literally gonna talk with the database server. Now here we have 5 methods, one called getAll, and this one would return list of nodes, which means that we are gonna get all nodes from the database. Okay, and remember that we need to get the nodes from the database for a particular user. And now how can I make sure that it is for a particular user? Now, if we expand this, you will see that the query that we are using. Now, the first thing that we are doing, we are creating a node, like a list of nodes. And then we are making use, by the way, this is, let me just do this here. Here, what we are doing, getting a connection. Like anytime that you need to get a connection, first you're gonna say, give me the connection pool. And after you get the connection pool, you're gonna make a use of the connection pool to get a connection. Okay. And again, this is an empty array list for nodes. And here we're just initializing the prepared statement and result set, or declaring them here. This is the query. I'm just saying select a star from node. That means give me everything on the node where the owner is equal to the data that I'm gonna pass. Now, how can I like replace the question mark? Remember that we are using something called prepare statement. And in the prepare statement, I give the prepare statement the string that contains the question mark. And then I say, okay, the first question mark, replace it with the value that I'm being received from here, which is the owner. And remember that the owner in this case is going to be the email. Okay, and therefore, yes, we are getting all nodes from the database. Yeah. However, remember that based on the email, where we are call this email here as an owner. Okay. And this is the condition where owner is. And yeah, this is like any time that you're gonna read a set of data, like more than one note, this is what you should do. You're gonna run a loop until you find all notes. And remember that anytime that you read, you're gonna take the ID of the note, the title, the content, and then you're gonna create the Java bean, and then this Java bean gonna be added into the note list. However, right now, if you want to just see the note class, this is the Java bean class. It has the attributes, implement serializable, it's gonna be empty, and just have a getters and setters here. A very simple Java bean. And let's go back here. After I finish reading everything, if everything is okay, then this is finally, it doesn't matter if I have a problem here or if I don't have a problem, I always do the finally thing. And the finally, what I'm doing, remember that we did talk about database util, and we say this database util gonna help me to, for example, close the result set, because here I'm using a result set. This is my result set that I'm using. Yeah, and I'm using something called prepare statement, and I'm using database to close it, and then I'm doing the free connection. Okay, and at the end, I'm returning all notes, remember, based on the email, where this email, like the owner here is the same as email. Okay, now let's go to the second method. The second method is get. Get, this is gonna get one note. However, based on a condition, based on the ID. Like I need to get the note ID to get that to you back to you. Now let's expand this to see that. First of all, I'm just creating a note, an empty note Java bean. Here, if you compare this, we were creating an array list of notes. Why? Because we are returning a list of notes. Here we are just returning one note, therefore I'm just creating one note. And then here, get connection with the database. This is every time the same. We're going to use the prepare statement, the result set, and this is my query. I'm saying select a star from note where note ID is equal to, and this question mark is being replaced here by the prepared statement. We are saying set integer. Okay, and then we are executing the query. And then because we are just going to read a one note at that time, we just say if statement. Remember at that time, we in the get all, we were saying while, here we are just saying if. Why if? Because it's just one note. Okay, it is just one note. Okay, now the finally part to close the result set and to close the prepare statement. Now let's see the third one, which is insert. Now here, I want to add a note to database. Now how to do that? First, you get the connection. Why I'm saying that, okay? You get the connection, and then here you make your SQL query. I remember that we have 3 colons here. Now we have 3 question marks. Now we need to replace them. It's the title, the content, the owner, and we execute the query, and that's all. And we just need to close the prepare statement because we are not using a result set. Okay. Now, let's go to delete update. Now this one is update the node that we have. The first thing that we need to do is to get the connection again. After we get the connection, we're gonna write our query. Now to update something in the database, for example, here I was saying update note, which is update the table note. We're gonna set the title and set the contents. That means I'm gonna change the title or change the content, one of them or both of them, where note ID is equal, and then here we need to pass. Now I need to set the values of the question marks, and here we are doing that with the prepare statement. I'm setting the first question mark to the node get title. Remember that I'm passing the node here that I want to update, and I'm passing set string for get contents, node.get contents, and then set integer for the node ID, which is the third question mark that I have here. Again, finally, the same thing. And for delete, we got the connection, and then we write the query, delete from node, where node equal ID equal the question mark. Now we need to replace it. The same idea. This is how we replace the question mark. And then we do the final thing. This is like very quick overview about all operations that we are doing. We're doing getting all the nodes or get one node only, insert, update, or delete. And if you just look here, this one return void, 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 and get node by ID. This one just gonna return one node, and this gonna return a list of nodes. Okay, now let me save. And let's go to the second layer that we have, which called services. Now remember that services is the class that's gonna talk with the node database. Like who's gonna talk with the node database is the node service. And you will see that here. This is node service. Let me just say everything. Okay, now let's start with the first one. This one is node get. That means I just gonna get one node. Now to get one node, what you need to do, we are going to create a node database class, this one here. Okay. 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 Let me close this. What we are doing, we are creating an instance of node database class here. And then we are saying node database to get, like we are using this method, this one here. And we are passing the ID to it. Okay, and then we are say return node. Now, what about get all nodes? It's the same idea. We are creating an instance of node database, and then we are using the method called get all. I remember this is the owner, which is the email, and then we return the list of the nodes that we have. Here we have insert. It's the same. However, if you look at the first one, they are saying the first column as 0. And remember, if you go to the node Java bean, you will see that the first one is a node ID. And it is 0 because like we are setting the ID equal to 0 because the ID is auto increment. If you go to the script that we have for the database and you scroll down to the node ID, you will have the node ID as an auto increment. That means it's not our responsibility to set the ID, and therefore I'm just saying it is 0 and MySQL must set a good ID for that. Okay, I'm just like taking this responsibility on my behalf to the MySQL, and I'm going to say MySQL must set a good ID for that. Therefore, I'm always passing 0, but 0, you will never see it on the database. They're going to pick a good name because it's an auto increment, like 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. And then we're going to make an instance of database, and we are going to make the use of insert database here, just the third one, this one, add the node to database. Now, we have update. It's similar. However, this time I'm just having all data that I need. I'm just creating a Java Bean object, and then I'm creating an instance of the database class, and I'm then passing the update. Okay. Now here we have the delete. What I'm doing, I'm getting a note, and then I'm sending this note to the node database, and then I'm saying that delete this note for me. Okay, because I have this node ID. If you go to the delete, you will see that, okay, I'm just using the ID. Like, yes, we can pass just a number, like we can just pass ID, for example, here. Like this is going to be like an integer ID, but we are just using the, like, let's say the best practice, which is using the Java Bean, and therefore, like, I'm just setting the node ID here to a Java Bean class, and then I'm sending this to the delete method, which is here. No, sorry, it's here. Okay, and I'm using the ID in this location. Okay, now this is the node service. Remember that the idea of a node service is the middle layer between the servlet and the database layer. This is the database layer. It has a more code than the service. However, the service is the where I prepare the data needed for the node database. Okay, now who's going to talk with the node service? The node service is going to have a connection with the servlet. Now I have two servlet, one called login and one called node servlet. I will talk about login by the end of this, but let's just start talking about node servlet first. Now here in the node servlet, I have two methods, one doGet and one doPost. And doPost has more code than doGet, but let's see the doGet method first. In the doGet method, the first thing, always remember that because it's a servlet, we need to make an object of service. Object of service, because remember that we did discuss this, the servlet always talk with the service layer, okay? Because this is a servlet layer, we need to create an object of service, which is this class, the one that we were talking about here. And this is the code that we are doing for get method. Now, let's go very quickly right now over this, and maybe we can go back again to it. What I'm doing here, first of all, we are just getting the session for the current application. And then what we are doing, we are saying, okay, give me the email. That means I'm storing the email in the session. Okay, like storing the email of the current user in the session. Okay. And after that, here we are making use of the service method. Okay. We are using the service method. And which method that we are using? We are getting all nodes. And after we get all nodes, because this is get all, and based on the email that we are storing here on the session, what we are doing, we are setting this to the JSP. Okay, setting this value for the JSP page, which is gonna be like the JSP page gonna have an access to all nodes if the request goes to the doGet method. Okay, for example, if I click on the green button gonna send a doGet request to here, and this gonna be executed. What we're gonna do, we're gonna say, okay, node service. We're gonna create an object. Then we're gonna get the email from the session. And then what we will do, we will have this, okay, get all nodes. And then what we'll have here is to set the nodes for the next JSP page. And if we have any problem, here I have a catch, and we are setting an error. Okay, like for example here, setting an error message to the next JSP. Okay, that means the next JSP might have an access to this, like the name of the attribute is message and the value is error. And here we are saying, in case I have a problem, it's under catch. Okay. Okay, now here what do we have? We are saying, okay, let's say that if there is an action, and this action is called view, that means the JSP, like I might receive a request that contains a parameter with value equal to view. Okay, if this is the case, like let's say that I receive a request and this request contains a value called view under the name like action, that means like, let's say like this, action is equal to view, something like that. I'm saying, okay, give me the action value. If it's equal to view, that means, oh, you need me to do something here. And as you can see, what we are doing an access to the node service. And we are saying node service.getID, because here we are not just passing the action view. It looks like that we are going to pass also the ID of the node. You will see that. Okay, well, remember that we are passing something called node ID, and then we are passing the number, like for example, one, let's say like 1 or 2, something like that. This is how we are going to send or to have an access to this block of your code. If you need to have access to this code or to this block of this code, that means you need to send a request. That request should have action equal of view, and then you should have a node ID, for example, with a number. And this is what it's gonna do. Gonna get a specific node, from the database based on the ID. Based on the ID, and you will see that. And here what we are doing, we are setting the selected node equal node. That means we are setting a variable. We are setting a variable to next JSP. Okay, we are just setting this variable to the next JSP called selected node. And here are that, as you can see, we are saying get servlet context.get request dispatcher, etc. Like we are just going to the node.jsp. Now, if I open node.jsp, here we go. This is maybe the most crowded node.jsp that you have ever seen in your life. We are taking care of all things in the same page. Now, let's see that the variables that we are passing. For example, the first variable that I set, it was this one, notes. And if you want to see if we are using this here, just look where we are using notes. And yes, we are using this here. We are using this notes inside the for each JSTL tag. And what about the second thing, which is here, is a message. Remember that the value of the message is error. Now, if I go to this, you can see, oh, I'm using the message here. And one of the message is equal error. Like I'm saying, okay, if the message is equal error, then show me this. Like, sorry, something went wrong. Okay. Now, what else we are sending? Oh, wait a second. We are sending another one, which is called selected node. And if we go to node.jsp, okay, we are select node. We are using this here, and we are using this here. Okay, and as you can see, now we are saying if selected node is equal null, like if we are passing null, because passing null, that means I'm not executing this section. Okay, if I'm not executing this section, just show me this part, which is create a new node. Now, if I selected node not equal null, this one, remember, this is equal null. If this is not equal null, then show me something called edit node. I know that we're going to see that, and we're going to see these two forms right now, like this, the first form, the second form, and there's another form here, which is a link. And now let's just have it here. I'm going to just click on run. Let's see what we will have. Here we go. Now we have the notes, and you can compare this with current JSP. And remember, this is a GET request. That means what we have done here, we just went to the do-get method. We got the email from the session, and then we got all notes for this user called CBRG352 plus Anne. And then here we have the notes for this user. And what else we have? We have this form. Remember that if I have create a new note form, if we go back here, I have either edit note or create a new note. Now, what do we have here? We have create a new note. That means this selected thing, which is this one is equal null. That means I haven't even accessed the section, and that makes sense because the green button doesn't make a request with action equal view and note edit equal to. Now, if you are wondering when we are going to have this action, very simple. If you just hover over one of this, you will in the corner see and I can just copy the link and we can examine this here. Just copy paste it. And you can see we are sending the data to nodes. The action is a view and the node ID is equal to. You can see that here. Yeah, it's exactly the same as how we were thinking about. Now let's, for example, click on this one. What will happen? What will change? Here we go. Now we have sent the request, the action view and node ID equal to. Remember, that means we're going to execute this and we're going to set the selected node and we're going to send the note to the JSP. Now, is it equal null? This time, no, it's not equal null. Why? Because it's now equal to note. Now, what is note here? Now, what you need to do, edit node. We have it, edit node. Then I have a title. And as you can see, I'm setting the value using the selected node that I am having here. Like, for example, because I selected this node, then I have the title as another node, then I have the content as here. Now I can say save, and we will talk about what is save, what this is save. We have delete, another form here called delete. And we have cancel edit. I'm going to say cancel edit right now. And if I say cancel edit, if you just copy the link, let's see it here. This is it's a very simple get request. That means I'm just going to send a get request without any parameters. Like I'm not sending a view or note ID. That means I'm going to get all notes and that's all. I'm not going to like do this part. Why? Because I'm not passing the action or the note ID. That means if I say cancel edit, I get back to the same page. Now, let's examine, for example, let's click on code number 1. As you can see, I get code number 1. Let's cancel edit. Again, like code number 1, cancel edit. Another note. See how we are changing this. This is everything that we have is just the do get part. Now let's go to the do post part. The do post part, if you see here, it's based on the 3 different actions, one called create, one called update, and one called delete. Okay, and let's get started to see how this code being run. First of all, what we are doing, we are just getting the session. From the session, we are getting the email of the current user, and then we are making use of the node service. Because remember the architecture, the servlet gonna talk with the service. And here, this is the most important part, which is the action. I'm gonna get the action, and based on the action, I'm gonna do my logic. I'm either gonna do, as I said, create, or update, or delete. That means I need to have an attribute or a parameter that has the name action and has different values, one of these values. And then here, what we are doing, we are just reading the data from the form. Like, for example, we are reading node ID, we are reading the node title, and we are reading the content. And you will see that right now, like when we are doing this. And here we are sending the message with action. Like we are setting a value. Anytime you see this, remember that we are setting a value for next JSP. Now, the next JSP is the node JSP, okay? Now, if you go there, you see message action. This is message here. And we're saying if the action is created, then say node created. If the message is updated, then node updated. And for the same for node deleted. Okay. Now, if we have an error, we send message equal error. And here we are doing try and catch to get all nodes. That means I'm getting all nodes no matter what. Like if the action is create, update, or delete, I'm still getting the all nodes. And you will see that, for example, here, if I just say, let's say title ABC, and this one is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, something like that, and say create. Now I have the message there, not created from here. Remember that I'm sending the action as the same value, which is create. And here I have what? ABC. If I say here, okay, now let's just click on this again. And now I'm able to edit this part. I can say this and then say save. Now, as you can see, node updated. That means message action. And this one was the update part. And now let's say that I want to delete this. I just go to delete. Okay, now let's examine the view page source here. Let's see the form. For example, here I have create note, a new note, this one. And as you can see, the first one, I have a title. I can set the title as ABC. Now, the second part of it, it is a text area. And let's say that we like content goes here. Okay. And now this is my content. And here, the hidden value. Did you see that? We have a hidden value. And this hidden value has a name action and the value is create. Therefore, here we are reading this here. We're saying, okay, action is what's the value of the action here is create. That means when I click on the submit button, I will send this action create. And here we go. Node created. And I have all nodes here. Now, let's say that I want to click on this. Remember, this is going to be a do get request. Now let's do that. we change everything. Now, if we just compare this with this, it doesn't make sense because this is another form. Just say view page source, and here we go. Now scroll down to see the edit note part. This is edit note, this is edit note. Yep. The first thing I have a title, but remember, see here, if you compare this title, like this title at the first, when it is create, it has no value. It's empty value. But right now it has a value, which is ABC. Now, if you need just to see the JSP page, this is when it was create. When it was create, it was having a value as an empty value. However, when it is edit, I was using the selected node.title. Okay, now let's go back. Here's the title ABC. Now content goes here. That means I'm making here. Content goes here, blah, blah, blah. Now go to JSP. You will see that here. I'm saying selected node.contents. Okay, from the text area. Now, here's the most important part, which is the hidden. I am hiding two important data right now. I'm hiding the ID of the node, and I'm hiding the action update. And if you go to your code, you are using this here. I'm reading the action and I'm reading the node ID. If I look on the page, I don't have any node ID mentioned, but I'm storing the node ID here as a hidden value. And again, the action here, the value of it is update. And then if I click on save, remember, I will send the node ID and I will send the action as hidden values. Now let's go here. Let's say, okay, let's just say 1, 2, 3, 4, and then say save. Here we go. Now we send this data, like we send the updated data. Remember, we sent two hidden value, node ID and action. And we did make use of them in the code here. Because if you say update, we are getting the integer ID, the node ID, and we get the title, the contents, and the email. Now, let's go back and let's press on ABC. Now, I just want to examine delete right now. Let's see delete. Delete is another form. It's sending that to post as well. However, here I have two hidden data. The first hidden data is the action delete, and then I'm hiding the ID of that. Now, if you just like have a look on the node.jsp, very simple. I'm just making selected node.node ID just to store the ID, because when I click delete, I just want to know what is the ID of the node that you want me to delete. And here we are making use of the node ID. Okay, now if I click on delete, let's click on delete. That means we are deleting the node. Now, the last thing that I want to talk about is the link that we see. If I click on the code number 1, here we have cancel edit. Okay, now if we see that here, it's a very simple href that send the request to nodes. Okay, that means it's a get request to do get. Okay, and that means we are getting the nodes. And now, are we going to do the selected node thing? No, we are not going to do that because we are not sending the view and node ID. We are just saying go to nodes. Okay, now remember that anytime that you need to make sure if this is correct, just go to web.xml and you will see that this is nodes. And nodes is being linked with node servlet. Now, the last servlet that I want to talk about is login servlet. From the name, you will think that, oh, we have a login system, but right now we don't have any login system. If you go to, this is, by the way, our welcome file. Like when I click on the green button, I go to login and I search where's login. This is login. And who is responsible for login? It's servlet.login servlet, this one. Now let's go to login servlet. And here we go. In the login servlet, what I'm doing is the following. I'm just creating a session. Okay, creating a session. And then automatically log as an in. I'm not changing anything. Like I'm not asking for username and a password. I'm just assuming that the only user that I have is in, and therefore I'm always having this as an in. However, for like let's say like upcoming labs, you might need to create here, get username, get password, and make sure that everything is matched correctly. And then you're going to create a session, not for this email, like this is a hard-coded email. You might do like another email based on the data that being entered. But right now, because if you are wondering like who is the because anytime that we are saying here session.get attribute, then we are saying email. Who is setting this email? We are setting this email here. When we click on the green button, we are setting the attribute here. Okay, and then we are sending a redirect to the notes page. Now remember notes, if we go to web.xml, this is notes, and who's responsible for that? That means we are sending a GET request to this page, and we are doing that here. Again, as I said, this is a very big code. A lot of things are here, and I hope that you spend some time trying to figure these things out by yourself, and we will have a good time for discussing this on the lecture as well. And yep, have a good day.